What's up, Vault Hunters? I'm SchviftyFive, and this is Ultimate Vault Hunters. Quag's back! You might be wondering, 2 visits in a row to Ultimate Vault Hunters for TBJ Quag? What's that about? We were so impressed with the fan reaction to Quag's most recent video that we decided to have him come back just in time for Broken Hearts Day, with a build guaranteed to make your heart melt. You've met Innuendo Bot, you've met Loader Bot, now here comes Love Bot. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining the conversation. Whether you're joining us on Twitch, YouTube, or Twitter, or listening along on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Spotify, we thank you for tuning in and listening to the program. Quag, welcome back. How you doing?
Doing great. Good to be here again.
It's so good to have you. How are you liking Broken Hearts Day?
Broken Hearts Day is an event that I've been looking forward to coming back for a while. It's just one of those things that it's another little change to combat, having the little hearts floating around, and
yeah,
I love things to spice up the experience.
Anything you're going to be farming for?
I'm going to be getting a bunch of wedding invitations for all my characters, all my saves that didn't get to go through the event last year. They're going to get to go through it this time, and that's just such a fun gun to use.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait to see it. Well, let's get into the build, shall we?
So we're going to start with the green tree, the stalker tree, and we go all the way down this tree because there's a lot of stuff to love, especially for this particular weapon, the wedding invitation, and for Jacobs snipers in general. People like to associate flak with Jacobs, and this is a new take on an old favorite.
Sweet.
So starting in the first tier, we have Furious Attack. This is just gun damage. It's as simple as it seems. Shoot enemies, do more damage to shoot more enemies.
Cool, I like it.
Then in the second tier, we have Eager to Impress. This is an important source of cooldown because Eager to Impress means you get a kill, it just shaves a chunk off of your active cooldown. Fade Away is going to be a big chunk of our damage, so we want to be shooting from Fade Away as much as possible. Eager to Impress facilitates that.
Great.
We've got the 1 point in All My BFFs. This is to transfer a little bit more of your healing over to the pet, as we are not running a Gamma Burst setup, so the pet can go into Fight for Your Life. So this is just a little bit of extra buffer for it.
Great.
And then we've got Lick the Wounds because, as all flak players know, sometimes you need your pet to save you.
I mean, I don't want to say often, but often.
Yeah. Then we have Turn Tail and Run. Turn Tail and Run is great when you can work it into the build, because it's conditional. It requires you to stand still for a chunk of gun damage and fire rate. But because we're using a sniper rifle and we have our pet taking some of the heat from enemies for us, we can often take advantage of standing still, lining up that perfect shot in that traditional sniper play style people have been chasing since it was the first thing I did in the Borderlands franchise. I know a lot of people can say the same.
Yeah.
Then in the next tier, we have the Fast and the Furious, which is a great utility skill in that it gives you both movement speed to zip around the battlefield and get out of danger, and gun damage. Now, this triggers only while you're over 50% health, so you do need to play a little defensively for it, but it's still impactful to work into the build.
Great.
And we have Hidden Machine. Now, this one is a bit confusing in terms of mechanics. This skill is only active when enemies are not targeting you. It's not just enemies that are on the battlefield. It's enemies have to have either never targeted you or be actively taunted by something else.
So like your pet?
Weird condition, like your pet. Flak has a bunch of ways to divert attention away from themselves onto their pet or even onto other enemies, and we're taking advantage of the pet in this particular setup to get as much Hidden Machine uptime as possible.
All right, interesting.
We've got Rage and Recover. This is one of my favorite skills in the entire game. It's ridiculously powerful healing over time, and it cannot be overstated how strong Rage and Recover is. You get a kill and you'll see your health bar just jump. It just jumps up. People who say health regeneration isn't a reliable source of survivability in this game have not put enough points into Rage and Recover.
So you only need 2 points.
You only need 2 points. We got to put points into damage elsewhere in the tree, but even at only 2 points, Rage and Recover is very strong.
All right.
And the crown jewel of the Stalker tree is the power inside. And this gives a very, very large chunk of damage. This says 25% damage while you're below 100% health, but 50% damage if your health is full when you activate your action skill. Now, this damage type is, as I talked about in my last appearance, called V1 damage. This is a multiplier only Flak gets in skill trees. So this 50% isn't the same as, say, 50% gun damage. You can get lots of gun damage very easily. This damage type is different. So this multiplies very favorably with your other stuff, and it gives you a lot of incentive to keep your health full and play defensively, which matches perfectly with a sniper rifle.
Sweet. All right. What's the next tree?
Next, we're going to go over to the hunter tree, the red tree. This is the second tree that people associate with gun flak builds because of the capstone, but we can pick up a lot of valuable things on our way down there. Now, it's going to look a little bit different to traditional builds because this is built around a specific weapon, the wedding invitation, that has the built-in functionality of giving you ammo back when you hit critical hits. So the first thing we're going to point out is that we only have 1 point in Leave No Trace.
Interesting.
Because we already get our shot back if we hit a crit, we don't necessarily need to invest more into that, and we can use those points elsewhere. We still do want the 1 point both to get down the tree and also because occasionally, if you're like me, you're going to miss the head. You're going to hit a body shot and you still want to be able to get ammo back from time to time that you wouldn't otherwise get.
I'm skipping ahead, but if you had more points, would you put more points in Leave No Trace?
Yes, I would. Okay. Personally, because my aim isn't the greatest.
Okay.
And then we're going to max out Interplanetary Stalker. Every single flak build that goes down red tree does this. It's just damage and a lot of fun utility buffs. You get movement speed against beasts. You get bonus corrosive damage. You get bonus action skill damage. It just does a lot of things for a lot of builds. But the main thing we're after here is just that juicy V1 damage. It's the same type we get from the power inside, just in a smaller quantity.
Interesting. Cool.
We've got Hunter's Eye. Now, this gives us a bunch of other desirable bonuses against different types of enemies. You have the armor damage against robots. This is very impactful for things like takedowns or fighting hack hounds. Hack hounds are the bane of my existence, so any damage I can get against them is welcome.
Right.
And then we've got head count. Head count is an alternative source of cooldown to Eager to Impress. And we only have 2 points here because it still triggers off of us getting critical hits. Head count is on a predetermined table. The point investment will only change how often it triggers. We generally get enough cooldown from Eager to Impress. We don't need more, but we do need to get down the tree, and it will do more for us than putting those 2 points into other skills would do. Now, the thing a lot of people who are familiar with my builds would question me about here is we have 5 out of 5 into Two Fang. Two Fang is a complicated skill in that it gives you a second projectile, or rather an additional projectile on your shot. Now, this does not double the weapons listed card count. So let's say you're using a shotgun, it would not give you a ridiculous amount of projectiles. Right. But with a single projectile weapon, it gives you 1 more. Meaning, in a loose sense, it's double damage for 1 projectile weapons. Now, this is also on a predetermined table, so every fixed number of shots, you will get a Two Fang shot. Now, this goes up with your investment. Between our skill tree investment and our class mod, we have 10 out of 5 points, ideally, in Two Fang, so we're getting a lot of free double shots. And
so 50% chance.
50% chance, yes.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yes, we get a lot of free bullets out of this wedding invitation, and it is a staple of any rocket launcher or Jacob sniper type build that takes red tree.
Sweet.
Moving past it, we have the staples of the mid tier of red. Big game and most dangerous game. You take both of these, you max them. The big game buffs pretty much everything you do. The most dangerous game is gun damage and crit damage. Very self-explanatory choices here.
We love crit damage on Flak.
We do. And then we have even more crit damage on Galactic Shadow, 1 tier below. And right below that, we have the capstone Megavore. Now, Megavore is great for players like me who can't always click right onto the head. So with a sniper rifle like the wedding invitation, that is very, very dependent on hitting those critical hits, you get free ones off of Megavore. So you can just, if you hit right below the critical hit spot, 20% of the time, Megavore will be like, close enough, here you go.
I love it.
And
All right. So we took 2 capstones. We're going to the final tree.
the final tree, we go into the master tree, the blue tree, and we're taking 3 points in Persistence Hunter. Now, this is mostly to get down the tree. Mostly. We do get a little bit of gun damage, and at times the action skill duration helps with Fade Away.
Right.
And the 2 points in Ferocity are just to get down the tree. Pet damage means absolutely nothing here.
Okay, fair.
And in the second tier, we go 1 point into Who Rescued Who. This is important for pet survivability. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes your pet is at risk of going down here due to our choice of Fade Away for our damage instead of Gamma Burst for our pet survivability. So just this 1 point here means that as long as you are doing damage, it is very hard for your pet to ever go into fight for your life.
Cool.
Then we have 4 points in Frenzy over on the right. And I wish we could get 5 points here, but 4 is still just hugely impactful. Frenzy is another V1 damage skill, meaning that whenever your pet deals damage, both you and the pet get more damage. Damage is the name of the game with Flak, and this lives up to that. And then we have He Bites, 1 skill over, and that's simply to facilitate our pet getting more and more frenzy stacks. It means whenever our pet gets damaged, it deals damage back, and that builds a frenzy stack.
Wow, that's really cool. That's awesome that you took 2 capstones and blue tree. Was not expecting the blue tree. Cool. That's exciting. Okay, so what augments for your action skill do you take?
We're gonna go with Not My Circus. Now, this is the pet taunt that makes your pet, as soon as your Fade Away ends, it will get the attention of all the enemies around it. Now, this will facilitate our Hidden Machine, giving us more damage against those enemies while they're focused on the pet. And it also takes some of the heat off of us. Flak is not exactly beefy in terms of survivability.
No.
The best way to get around that is to not get hit at all.
Cool. I like it. And the other augment?
For the second one, we go with the insanely powerful healing and move speed from Until You Are Dead. Now, this might not seem huge in practice, but having the passive healing and movement speed from Fade Away on at all times is such a good quality of life option that it really can't be passed up. And remember, because we have All My BFFs, part of our healing is transferred to our pet. So that extra healing we get at all times, our pet benefits a little bit too.
I like that. These are augments that you don't typically see people use. So it's cool to see something different for once on Flak, for instance. Okay, so what's the main rotation of this build?
It's tried and true. You're going to go into Fade Away. You're going to aim for the head. You're going to let loose with your sniper rifle. And you are rewarded for hitting as many consecutive critical hits as possible, because if you pop an enemy with a critical hit and you have Guardian rank talents such as Overkill, all of that overkill damage, anything that was not necessary to kill the enemy, that goes into your next shot. So you can just chain overkill shots, pop heads of enemies one after another.
Oh, that sounds very nice. Cool. So what damage builds exist out there that could compare in numbers to this build?
Now, this build is great because it's sort of a platform for any single projectile weapon. It's focused around that. You might see better overall or comparable overall DPS with setups around multi-projectile weapons that would say take, instead of Two Fang, you would have Grim Harvest for extra gun damage situationally, or you'd be taking a different action skill so that you can use Gamma Burst and have your pet supplement your damage. But in terms of gun builds, this is going to be just about the best you're going to see for a single projectile sniper rifle.
Awesome. All right. You really believe in your Flak build. I'm glad to see it. I like to see it.
Crunch the numbers a lot, perhaps too much.
All right. So while we have you here, how did this build fare overall with the True Guardian takedown?
True Guardian takedown is a little rough with this build because hitting critical hits on Guardians and Necrobugs is not the easiest thing in the world. It's a little tough. Personally, I would take some backup weapons if you're going to run this build in that content. Since you do have Jacob's stuff going for you, you can take some of the tried and true Jacob weapons that people love, like the Hellwalker, the Skull Masher. Just have them in your back pocket, so if you're like me and can't hit those crits 100% of the time, you have something to pull you out of the fire.
Cool. All right, so what about specifically the crystal activation sections?
For the crystal section, you do have the advantage of your pet taunting enemies for you. So with a bit of luck and positioning your pet well, you can have your pet take all the heat off you, and you can sit back and drink some tea while standing in the crystal charging it, because the enemies won't care about you at all.
Fair, fair, fair. What about anathema?
Anathema works very well, as again, you can use your pet to your advantage. You can deal enough damage to anathema to get it to trigger its radiation bubble phase. And then if you sit outside of the bubble, have your pet sit inside. Since your pet has heat bites, anathema's bubble will hit the pet and do a large portion of damage back to itself. And then you just go revive your pet and rinse and repeat.
And what about Scourge the Invincible Martyr?
Scourge the Invincible is a unique case in that due to the diadems that spawn in the fight, you can use them to push Scourge faster than even your own damage can. And if you are on true takedown difficulty, this fight is actually easier than scale, getting more diadems. You just need to push the boss far enough one time, and then you can actually, once you get the hang of the gameplay loop, you can run in a circle around Scourge, have all the diadems come up to him, detonate, and the fight will do itself.
Nice. So what do you feel this build excels at the most?
This build is a great way to do that classic sniper playstyle where you sit back from range and you line up that perfect shot. And because the wedding invitation is so powerful with its ricochets from enemies, you can clear out entire groups of enemies just by hitting that one perfect headshot.
Really interesting. That's awesome. So about the skill tree, how do you feel about the 5 points recently added to the game alongside Psycho Krieg and the Fantastic Foster Cluck?
Those 5 points really help the spec out, because those are effectively, that's our blue tree, those 5 points. That's how we get our Frenzy, our Heat Bites, and our Who Rescued Who. That's how we grab all those things. So without those points, we would have had significantly less damage.
I was going to ask, do you think the build stood to benefit greatly from having the 5 points?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is one of the specs where those points really came in handy, and DLC 4, Psycho Krieg DLC, really assisted this build even existing.
Okay, so I know we already went over it a little bit earlier. We talked about Leave No Trace, but if you had 4 more points to add to your talent tree, where would they go?
Definitely that 5th point in Frenzy. Absolutely. That's the one that I would really, in my heart, I hate when I don't have the points to max out Frenzy, but it's still so good. It's just so close. And Leave No Trace as well would get some more love.
Awesome. What weapons and gear will be utilized for this build?
This build is thematic. It's all about the wedding invitation. Now, instead of that, you can use any projectile Jacob sniper that you like. You could throw on a monocle, a cocky bastard, a head explosion. Those are all good options. But the focus of this is the wedding invitation. We have a couple backup weapon options for, say, Fight for Your Life, but it's all about that awesome Broken Heart Stay weapon.
Awesome. What anointments should players aim for?
You want to go with next to Mag's anointments of whichever element is going to be for the scenario you're in. So if you're fighting a lot of armored enemies, you want bonus corrosive, you want fire for flesh, you want shock or radiation for shields.
Awesome, awesome. What gear, if anything, would you consider essential for this build?
The most impactful thing you're going to have next to the wedding invitation, of course, is a Deadeye class mod, because this class mod gives Flak a bonus against high health enemies, so it assists you in getting those one-shots, and additionally, it gives you points in Two Fang, which gives you that chance for extra projectiles, and because this is a single projectile weapon, it roughly equates to double damage.
Ooh, spicy, I like it. Are there any specific roles that you consider ideal as class-specific passives on the mod?
You're going to want Jacob's critical hit damage. Wedding Invitation is all about scoring those critical hits. You're going to want area of effect damage, splash damage, because the explosion that pops out when you shoot someone in the crit spot with a Wedding Invitation, that gets that bonus.
Ah, awesome. Okay, so what artifact do you use?
We're going to go with the Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge. Now, this is a choice that is a bit of a trade-off.
Okay.
It does not immediately benefit you because the Pearl needs to be stacked to get to its peak damage. But because the Wedding Invitation has ricochets that hit so many targets, and because it is spammable with some good accuracy, and because we can get some extra damage out of, say, our pet or our grenade, you'll be able to keep your pearls stacked. So once you're in combat, it's going to do the best from the middle of the encounter towards the end.
Fantastic. What grenade mod do you use?
The Hunter Seeker. This is one of my absolute favorite items in the entire game. And it's such a unique grenade. I love whoever designed the Hunter Seeker. Please let's talk. You made one of my favorite grenades ever.
Aw.
The Hunter Seeker is a drone that shoots bullets that the game fully considers bullets as if you'd fired them from a gun. The only thing that it leaves out is they don't benefit from gun damage bonuses. But the Hunter Seeker will stack up your Furious Attack. It will get your next 2 mags anointment on your gun. It does a lot. It'll trigger your Leave No Trace. It does so many things. And like I mentioned with our Pearl, we need to stack it. You can throw a Hunter Seeker out and it'll stack up anything you have that benefits from shooting a gun a bunch.
That's awesome. Holy crap. I had no idea, man. I've been trashing Hunter Seekers like crazy. I can't believe. Oops.
It's one of my favorites.
Interesting. That's so cool. I would have never thought about that. What shield do you use?
You have a few options for shields here. The O.M from the Malawan Takedown is the strongest single projectile amp shield. Amp shields have a few different behaviors, though. So the O.M, all of its amp will go to 1 projectile. Now, this will not affect our 2-fang projectile, so it's a bit of a pickle here. You could go with a non-legendary shield. A popular option in the community is the one-shotter shield, which is a purple shield with 3 amp parts. Now, that is a small amount of amp, but that amp is distributed to all projectiles. So they will all get the 100% from the one-shotter, whereas the O.M will give you 130%, but just to 1. So the personal taste, do you want to make sure all of your projectiles at all times are being buffed, which would be the one-shotter, or do you want to make sure that you get that 1 that's really, really good with the O.M? The O.M also has the advantage of it makes a circle on the ground when it breaks that massively amps your damage as a full multiplier to your whole formula while you're standing in it. So it does 2 things as opposed to other shields doing 1.
Math. We said we were going to use it one day, and we did.
Video
just not
games.
what they thought. Yeah, in video games. All right, so say I don't have all of the equipment yet. What could be a suitable stopgap until I have the optimal loot needed?
Flak gun builds are great in this department because you have so many comparable options. Let's say you can't get a Deadeye class mod. Well, other good gun class mods will still work here. You have your Cosmic Stalker, you have your Bounty Hunter, you have your Rack Pack. Even though you're not using Rack Attack, Rack Pack rolling head count helps you get your fadeaway back a little faster. It's a nice little life hack. And as we mentioned for the shields, there's so many different amp shield options. You could run an O.M, you could run a one-shotter, you could run a rerouter. A Madcap can also roll to be a one-shotter. Any shield that gets as much amp as you can will be great there. For your artifact, if you don't have a Pearl, you can run any artifact that has solid Wedding Invitation friendly passes, such as sniper rifle damage, area of effect damage, fire damage. All of those things will be good there. For the grenade, I would really just recommend getting a Hunter Seeker because it's great. It's my favorite. It does so many cool things.
Not hard to get, yeah.
Yeah, not terribly hard to get. But if you happen to have an It's Piss grenade, that's a direct damage debuff against enemies that are hit by it. So that would be the second best option behind that.
Can you just quickly go over where we can get these things? The Wedding Invitation, where can we get that?
Wedding Invitation comes from the Broken Hearts Day event. And we had this in 2020 for Valentine's Day.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll get it for 2021 Valentine's Day. Very much looking forward to that.
Yay. And is there any other things? Where's the It's Piss come from again?
It's Piss comes from Captain Thunk in the Doll Mine. Conrad's Hold is the name of the zone.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. So what Guardian rank talents should players focus on to get the most bonus stats for this build?
In terms of talents, Overkill is hugely important here. Overkill cannot be overstated. You line up that headshot, any extra damage you did will go into your next shot. Overkill is huge. Hollow Point is also a great one because whenever you kill an enemy with a critical hit, you get a bonus explosion around them, and it helps you wipe entire crowds. Those two things are huge for any sniper rifle focused build.
Interesting. Gosh, these things I would have never thought about. What guardian rank talents, if any, should a player disable to use this build?
This is pretty friendly to any other guardian rank talents. There's none that are really going to hurt you in the spec at all.
Good to know. When spending a guardian token, what are the stats players should focus spending the tokens on?
You're going to want to go with gun damage, elemental damage, maybe fire rate as the wedding invitation. If you have really good accuracy, you can use almost as a non-sniper rifle. It's got a very fast potential fire rate. I personally go a little bit slower just to preserve some of that accuracy, but fire rate can be beneficial.
Awesome. Are there any Mayhem modifiers, presuming that you're playing on Mayhem 10, not Mayhem 11, are there any Mayhem modifiers that one should keep an eye out for that will enhance this build?
Speed Demon is always a personal favorite. You can use it to either get into danger or out of danger, depending on what you need in any given situation. If you do want a little bit of extra damage, though, with a little bit of extra effort, you can run Big Kick Energy. Now, this will give you extra damage for your gun at the cost of significantly worse recoil.
Well, if you're on a mouse and keyboard, you should be fine. How did you test this build?
I tested this build by doing one of my favorite activities, which is Slaughter Shaft. Slaughter Shaft is a great place to go to see if the concept of a build will work. It's not as hugely demanding of optimization as something like a takedown is.
Right.
But it's not as casual, as laid back as something like a story area would be.
Like,
so it's a nice medium between those.
Yeah. Okay, so what were some of the initial impressions when you first tested this build?
I had actually forgotten how satisfying the wedding invitation was. Just seeing the ricochets, you'd see one go off from an enemy you shot, and across the room there'd be a frozen COV 3-bar enemy. You're like, wow, this guy's already missing this much health, and you just finish him off, and the next thing it happens again because you get another ricochet, you line up that shot. It's such a satisfying weapon, and I really missed using it. A lot of people forgot about it for a few months because the event was last year, but this weapon is still so entertaining to use.
Awesome. What did the numbers look like compared to similar builds, both ones you have crafted and ones you've seen other community members display?
In terms of Jacob's sniper specific builds, this is the upper ceiling of that. You're not going to see get too much higher for this specific type of weapon. Now, this isn't going to compare to something like, say, using Nova builds or, let's say, shotgun builds. Things like the Hellwalker are in a tier of their own. But in terms of sniper rifles, if you want to chase that play style, that classic scout sniper, lay back and line up the perfect shot, then this will be some of the highest damage you can achieve doing that.
Fantastic. Do you feel that there are any changes that Gearbox could make to the game that would further refine this build without making it drastically over or underpowered?
Just a little bit of love to either sniper rifles in general or the wedding invitation specifically. We've gotten content that was not available when we first got this weapon. So I'm sure the Guardian takedown being a little unfriendly to it mechanically compounds the issue of the damage values didn't have it in mind. I'd like to see that bumped just a little bit so the weapon's a little easier to use in areas where you don't necessarily hit those crits every time.
Cool. Well, maybe they will be listening and they will hear your suggestion. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been amazing. Is there a build that you can maybe take 15 seconds to tease for your next appearance, which could be next time because you've been on it twice already? This is awesome.
It's always a pleasure to be here. And maybe next time I will bring on an Amara build I've been messing around with lately. People associate me with Flak more than anything, but I do play the other characters and I do have fun things I like to do on those.
You did mention last show that you sort of stole your Flak build on the last show from Amara. So that's I'll be excited to see what you do with her. Great. Ooh, I'm so excited. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on the show. And thank you, TBJ Quag, for joining us as well. Quag, where can we find you on the internet?
I'm live on Twitch 6 days a week, twitch.tv/tpjquag, and I'm on Twitter at the same handle. I do YouTube a little bit, just a little bit of YouTube. It's Quag TBJ instead of TBJ Quag.
It's TBJ_Quag, just so everybody knows exactly how to find you. Well, I'm SchviftyFive. You can find me everywhere on the internet, SchviftyFive. Love is in the air, as are a bevy of bullets from the wedding invitation. Quag's new build is designed with one goal in mind: raining down frostfire style destruction on all your enemies. The upcoming Broken Hearts event will give players a chance to finally get their hands on the sniper rifle at max level and Mayhem 10 enhanced. So don't miss out on your opportunity. We're coming up with a build that is quirky, unique, and features a fan favorite weapon everyone will be gunning for. I once again award you the title of Ultimate Vault Hunter.
It's an honor and a pleasure, as always.
The much discussed 4th skill trees are out now as a part of the Designer's Cut and Season Pass 2. And if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you pick up the new DLC today. Thank you so much for joining us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you'd like more details about this build, you can find a link to more information and the build in the podcast description section. We'll return on 2 weeks on February 25th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific time. Happy looting to all you Ultimate Vault Hunters out there.